Okay, so last time we left off, we kind of wrapped up telling your life story. This time, we're diving in a little bit more to what the podcast will look like in the future. Not fully sure on that process yet, kind of discovering it as we go. Do you have anything you want to say before we start?
Yeah, I this has come to me a lot lately, and the whole question of what gets you out of bed in the morning, and what maybe the question is, yes, what gets you out of bed, but what makes you get out of bed? What's the inspiration for getting out of bed? I'm not talking about the alarm clock that wakes you up, or the person that wakes you up, or the sun that comes in that wakes you up, meaning the sunshine that wakes you up. It's what makes you decide to energize your body, to get out of bed, to get up, and to basically start the day, to live your life. And how do you do it such that when you wake up, you're alive and you're alert and you just can't wait to embrace the day? And for some people, that's probably a challenge, or maybe a challenge. And you may think that the people that do that well are people who are wealthy, successful, lucky in life, or whatever. However, if you really dug down into those people's lives, I think you'd find that they, at one time in their life, made a decision that they would find a way in life to get up, get going, get started, get after the day, because it's a decision that people make. It's a practice that they embrace, and they just start to make things happen in their life. And your day begins when your day starts, when you get out of bed. You could also make an argument that your day really starts the night before or the day before, when you're planning your next day. So what gets you out of bed in the morning?
So you weren't supposed to be here right now.
Right. I was supposed to be in Turks and Caicos.
Yeah. So that didn't work, obviously.
That didn't work out the way we expected. We had the Plords with us, which means Jamie, Tyler, Adeline, and Juliet, who are going to turn 7 while we're down there. And when we arrived at the airport, of course, we got up at 2 o'clock in the morning and picked up Jamie and Tyler at 3:30, at the airport at 4:30, checked in, bags all set, ready to roll, in the plane, 5:30, waiting. 6 o'clock comes, and the pilot comes on and says, folks, we have a problem with the airplane. The toilets are not functioning, so we've got a mechanic who's going to be on board here shortly. Hopefully we'll resolve this and we'll be on our way. Well, the fact of the matter is, we've got a 50-minute flight transfer time frame when we get to Atlanta, and any kind of delay is probably going to push us off. So what do? Well, we sit and wait, and a mechanic comes on the plane with a plunger. So we're not too encouraged by what that might mean. And then it's 7 o'clock or so, and the pilot comes back on and says, sorry, folks, the mechanic can't fix the toilet. We've got to get parts from Boston. They won't get here till 10:30 or so we'll have to deboard the plane. So we got to deboard the plane, and you could watch actually everybody on the plane was very cooperative. We all walk off the plane, get in. They tell us, you got to get in line to talk to one of the desks to get your flight rebooked or whatever. Of course, Mom is already on her messenger with Delta Airlines before we even get off the plane, and people start lining up. Of course, there's like 300 people on the plane, so everybody's got to get their new itinerary situated. So we step to the side, sit down, talk about what our plans are, or what our progress can be, what we can do. And you could watch the kids, they're asking questions immediately when he made that announcement. What are we going to do? How are we going to get there? and more questions, well, what plane were we going to take? And lots of questions from 6, almost 7-year-olds. And we sit down and we're trying to make a plan. And, we said, we got to focus on the plan, not the problem. We have solutions. We have to figure out what solutions they are. And you could see them embrace some of that. And then you could see Adeline, she was just sort of unraveling. Of course, they're exhausted. And she starts crying. She's so upset. And, they see all these airplanes flying in and flying out. And like, well, what can we take that one? That one just landed. We'll take that one. So their minds just work that way logically. And we explained to them why it won't work. And, she just had to clear her emotions, I think. And then we just said, we're in the business of problem solving. And that's what we do. And we create solutions. And what was really nice was, so Jamie and Tyler have just bought this lake house in Lincoln, Maine, about 2.5 hours away. And I know that they wanted to go back up there, sooner because there's projects to be done before they can start renting it and staying comfortably. So that light bulb went off for them almost immediately. The kids have already been, excused from school. So don't put them back in school. We're going to camp. And they didn't tell the kids that yet. Yet that would be the ultimate solution. And, on the way home, the conversation wasn't, poor me, how come we can't be in Turks and Caicos today? It was, everything happens for a reason. Who knows what that reason is, yet we're not going today. We got rebooked for Wednesday. So all is fine. And then when the kids found out that they were going to the lake house, we were able to say, see, there was many solutions and this one's the best. And they ultimately ended up having 2.5 days up to camp, which will be, a great memory for them as part of making something good out of something that seemed so terrible. Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay. So you just recently completed a bike ride. Tell me about that. What was that about?
So I did the Dempsey Challenge with, I don't know how many riders there were actually in that ride, but that's a Patrick Dempsey cancer research. Actually, I think it's tagged as money that's raised to help people manage the impact of dealing with cancer. So it's not just research, but I think it also helps like families that have family members in cancer that might need housing when they come visit, or I think it's anything. And it's a weekend event, I guess. It's spread out over several days. There's a walk, run one day and a bike ride on the next day. And I've done it twice before and did it again this time with Ken Olmsted. And Ken, our friend from Sugarloaf, whose son Tucker died, I think he was 11. Was he 11 or 14?
Yeah, I can't remember.
In that,
Yeah.
he was young.
Young teenager.
Yeah, young teenager who had cancer, went through treatments, was in remission, and then very shortly after that, a few months even after that, lost the battle. So, we ultimately first started doing the Not Dead Yet ride with Ken, which you did with me and Nate Susi that one time. And then the Not Dead Yet ride transformed into they didn't transform, but they were starting to conflict with one another, the Not Dead Yet ride and the Dempsey Challenge. So Not Dead Yet ride passed or, ended, and the efforts went into the Dempsey Challenge ride. And you can ride anywhere from, I think, 10 miles to 100 miles. And Ken and I have done the 65-mile ride before, and we did that again this year. And it's a great event. Raised $1.6 million and a little more, which is a record for the event this year. And, just an amazing thing to be there with all these people that are supporting cancer. Everybody has someone who's been impacted by cancer before. And probably the most provoking part of the ride is when you are coming in on the last stretch, which is a walkway before you cross a footbridge into the mall where the end and beginning of the event take place. And all along that walkway, there are posters of people allowed to put posters up of family members, friends that have either passed or are fighting cancer. And it's, you know, it's a physical effort, I think, in the beginning, you know, because you're kind of mentally getting prepared to take a long ride. And then all of a sudden you come there, and especially because I'm riding with Ken. And, you know, just having him knowing what he's thinking all the time and how it hits it home right then when, you know, we're riding across through that pathway and riding for Tucker. And then what was pretty momentous this time was we finished, we went through the gate, we're in the park, we get off our bikes, and the very first thing that Ken does is call his wife. And that's, you know, how they connect, I guess you'd say, to Tucker in a way that they can. And I'm just grateful to be there and participate with it. And what was really interesting was, so doing those Not Dead Yet ride T-shirts, or during those, being in those Not Dead Yet rides, you get a shirt, you know, a bike shirt with those. And I have a couple, and as you know, I have my pink shirt with white polka dots that says, "Still not dead yet." And I wore that shirt in the ride. And as I was riding along, this guy comes up from behind us, and he's got the same shirt on. And he says, "Hey, nice shirt." Well, I didn't really recognize him at that time. Yet, as we're sitting down after the event, they provide you with, you can have lobster or chicken or whatever, but they give you a meal and refreshments and whatnot. So I'm sitting down, and he sits down beside me, and we made a comment about the shirt, and I realized that he's the original founder of the Not Dead Yet ride. Cancer survivor, he and another friend who are both, I think he's a radiologist. I don't remember what his friend does. Yet they started the event, and it was just cool to connect and chat with him.
It's awesome. What have you learned from like doing a long bike ride like that?
Preparation. You know, you got to train. You got to have legs to ride for 65 to 100 miles, and which is great because it gives you a purpose in your training. And you know, I mostly train with Ken, so it's a great time for us to be together. And you know, we typically will ride in the mornings. I'll ride some myself in the mornings quite a bit, and it's during the summer, you know, that we can get out on the roads. So it's preparation in terms of getting the miles in, spending the time on the bike, and, you know, planning how you're going to get that time to fit in. And then it's really, for the event itself, and part of the training is really have to focus on your food and your calories and your intake and how you're fueling your body, mostly because, you know, you could probably survive the ride without doing that, yet without it, your recovery time is going to take a long time, and you might just, you know, boink during the ride and end up cramping or just not being able to finish. And, you know, my first time, the first time I did the Not Dead Yet ride, which was the 65-mile ride, which is technically, well, they call that a century ride. Yeah, century ride. And it's based on
100 miles is a century.
Metrics, though.
Yeah,
the metric system. 1,000 kilometers. 100 kilometers. 100 kilometers, yeah. So when I did that the first time and went out, I mean, I had trained some. I hadn't trained enough mileage, you know, to really know what it felt like to ride that distance. And when I reached the distance that I hadn't ridden yet, and then I pushed beyond that during that ride. Oh man, my legs cramped up so badly. And I was at that point in time all by myself. I'd broken away from a bunch of people, or they'd broken away from me. I'm not saying I was by any chance ahead of anybody or not, but I would just happen to be on a long stretch of being alone. And the last portion of that ride is mostly hills. And I just remember both my thighs being completely locked. And I didn't know if I'd be able to ride on my bike or not. And I just kept, awkwardly raising my full leg up and over the pedals to keep pedaling. And ultimately, I probably grabbed some water or something and got enough recovery in me to finish the last 15 miles of the ride. And I haven't had that problem since, because I realized that maybe some people can survive without a lot of hydration or a lot of food. I just eat the whole time. Either eat carbohydrates in one form or another, the little gel packs, and whatever I can get in me. Yeah.
I know you had talked to me in the past about, I don't like the word hack, because I don't think there's a hack to life, but there's things you can do that make life easier or make hard things easier, or you can do hard things that make life better. Doesn't have to make life easier. You could intentionally seek out hard things. That doesn't make your life easier. What's something that right now you're kind of thinking about as far as adding value to your life or to others that's kind of targeted? And you can call it a hack.
So ask the question again.
So you have talked in the past about, you and I really connect on things that make life better, whether some people will call it a hack, or it could just be something that makes your life easier in one way or another, or you could be doing something that's more difficult, like a harder version of a workout or whatever it is that makes life better. It doesn't have to make life easier. Is there something right now that you're thinking about or doing that has added a lot of value to your life or others?
That's a great question. So really the question is, have I added value to the lives of what am I doing to add more value to the lives of others?
No, that's not the question.
Okay.
If you want to answer that question, if you have something for that,
yeah.
I can ask that
I'm going to have
question.
to put some thought into that question, but yeah, that's okay. So
no, the question is, what are you doing right now that's like having a massive impact in your life? That's like a seemingly small thing, or it could be not looking at the phone after 8 p.m. or it could be this program that you've put yourself on, something nutrition-wise, whatever.
Okay, great question. Got it. So I would say one of those things is this that I've recently been working on is sleep. And, for the longest time, I was a 4 or 5 hour a night sleeper and just did it and made the best of it. And sometimes was I in a brain fog from doing that, practically every single night? Sure. I could sense times when I had a brain fog. Yet, physically, mentally, I could push through it. I had all the reasons why to push through it. And then about a year or two ago, my doctor kept asking me about my sleep and how was my sleep. And he said, geez, you really ought to get more sleep. And, the more I read, the more I studied, the more people that I listened to that I respected were talking about how much sleep you need to get. And Tim Ferriss, I guess, would be the one that really, I would hear him over and over again talk about sleep and how he had struggled with sleep. And he recommended this thing called 8 Sleep, which is a sleeping pod, I guess they refer to it as. And I heard it several times and said, I got to check this out. So ultimately, we bought an 8 sleeping pod, and that has just changed my life in terms of sleep. And I haven't had a brain fog since 2 days ago when I went to bed at 11 o'clock and got up at 2 o'clock in the morning to leave. because I had things I had to do the night before and had to leave the next morning at 3:30. And that tracks my sleep. It does many different things. It tracks my sleep. It makes sleeping competitive with myself because it scores me every night. And it's forced me to become consistent with when I go to bed. It's forced me to go to bed earlier. I've never had a problem getting up in the morning and getting out of bed when I'm supposed to. So that part hasn't changed. And the reasons this bed has improved my sleep, the actual sleeping part, is that it has water, a small amount of water in the bed in tubes that regulate the temperature of the bed. Because prior to having this, I would wake up in a pool of wet sweat almost nightly. And, I'd be hot and I can't sleep when I'm hot. So, I haven't had that happen. The bed malfunctioned one night or at one time, and I woke up in a sweat and I didn't sleep as well. When I'm away, sometimes I'll wake up in a sweat because I don't have the bed with me. So it's just amazing how that has impacted my ability to sleep. And the wonderful thing is, it's set up with two separate sides. So your mother has the bed much hotter than I would have, and I have it cool where I want it. And, when I wake up in the morning and the bed itself actually vibrates lightly and then increases, and that wakes me up, when I shut it off, I can tell how well I slept, regardless of how much I think I was awake in the middle of the night, which I think I was up for an hour or so. It will show basically when you're awake and when you're asleep. I might have been awake for 5 minutes, but that time, in the middle of the night seems like an eternity. So it, your grandmother struggled for a long time with sleep, and in her opinion, she was up all night long. When I think really she was up for maybe a couple of periods of time that weren't very long, but it was hard to fall back asleep, which feels like an eternity, but it's not really. So I think that has been something this past year that has really been helpful to me, and has just set me on a good path, I think, to not being up, till the middle of the night, which I don't need to be, because I could, I could sit there and mostly either watch TV or, do work, or both at the same time, just sitting there. And I've also learned that television before I go to bed, after a certain time, not good. It doesn't matter really what I watch. It can matter what I watch, but the impact of, television on my brain before I go to bed, it's too much stimulation, and I really got to stop around. My goal is 7 o'clock. I don't get any TV. I have been lately getting on my computer, which, I'm mostly just watching videos and things of biking or whatever other improvements I might be looking at doing, and that is okay, but still I should probably at 7 o'clock just stop the media influence, whatever. So that's something that I have been working on.
Your sleep.
My sleep, yeah. Yep.
Okay. So let's say you shut it down at 7 o'clock. You close your computer, turn the TV off. What do you do to prepare for the next day? And then when you ask people what a perfect day looks like, what does a perfect day look like starting, at 7 p.m.? Because to me, that's when your day starts.
Okay. So you want me to skip the stuff that happens before 7? You mean?
Yeah, well, because you'll get there on the next day.
Yeah,
7 p.m.
7
to 7 p.m.
7 p.m. to 7 p.m.
Not 4:30 a.m. to 4:30 a.m.
Okay.
So what does a typical day look like for you? And we're going to start in your preparation for the next day, starting at 7 p.m. when you turn off the TV.
Yeah, 7 p.m. TV goes off, and I am going to grab it's my iPad now. It used to be a leather-bound book, and I have a daily planner that I write out I put the date on the top, and then I write my schedule out. And on that schedule, it's, the time I'm going to get up, which is 4 o'clock. And the item on 4 o'clock is I'm alive with an exclamation point. And then the next thing that happens is I start what I call my most valuable to-dos, and that's 6:15. And then at 7:00, I start my work day. And
You're writing this out at 7 p.m.?
no, I'm writing this all out at 7 p.m.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So these are the things that I'm writing in my
Got it.
planner at 7 p.m. for the next day.
Got it.
So 4:00 I'm up. 6:15 I start my most important things. At 7:00 I start, contacting clients and
Mm-hmm.
being in touch with people, taking care of, real estate related tasks.
So you write out your schedule for the next day?
I write on my schedule for the next day.
Okay, and then what? What do you do after you finish your schedule?
After I finish my schedule, sometimes I'll read a book if I have a good book to read.
Fiction, nonfiction?
Typically, it is fiction. Yeah, I'll read about somebody.
You mean nonfiction?
Yeah, that one, nonfiction.
Yeah.
I've
Like
always,
some self-development.
some type of self-development. I'll read about somebody who is an inspirational person. I'll read about, something based on faith and formation and, so books that will inspire me. I haven't really gone the
Non-fiction or fiction.
fiction side of things yet. I'd like to at some point in time.
Yeah.
Yet
I've heard it's really good for you to read fiction before
Yeah.
bed and nonfiction in the morning. I really struggle with fiction.
Yeah. Even when I'm reading fiction, I'm going to be looking for messages that are
Right.
going to,
Yeah.
make me
Mm-hmm.
a better person,
Right.
or how I can help somebody else who's in a situation.
How long would you say you read for if you do?
Well, so if I start reading at 7, my goal is at 8:30 I'm in bed. So by just a little after 8:00, I'm going to be wrapping that up, and then I sometime between 8 and 8:30 I have a daily prayer that it's a prayer list of people that we're praying for, and I'll go through that. That takes me probably 10 minutes. Then I'll do my routine to get in bed, and I'm in bed by 8:30, which is a huge change for me because it used to be 10, 11,
Right.
whatever time.
What about like eating or drinking from
Yeah.
7 on? Do you eat or drink anything?
I could be reading fiction, yet I'm reading nonfiction, and the nonfiction books that I've read have really helped me to develop a better nighttime routine, which is, my goal is not eat anything after 7:00 at night, not drink anything after 8:00 at night. Really, I like to stick to 7. And, because anything in my stomach, and I've broken those rules several times over the past few days because we were going to go away, we weren't going to go away. And I know I did it Friday night. I ate a bunch at 8:00 because I had to be someplace late, and I got home and I convinced myself I had to eat. Geez, I was tossing and turning in bed. Again, maybe not a ton, but enough to keep me awake because my stomach was trying to process food. And, the older you get, the more your body needs time and routine. So, I don't drink, I don't eat as much as possible after 7:00.
Okay, so then you go to sleep at 8:30.
Mhm.
Does it you usually fall asleep quickly? Or is
Yeah,
it,
yeah, which is another reason why I love my 8 sleep, because it tells me how long it takes me to fall asleep. And so the parameters on the 8 sleep, back to that, the major metrics for scoring is how long it takes you to fall asleep, how long you slept, how long it took you to get out of bed. And then from those things also, it measures your heart rate, your HRV, and
Which is your heart rate variability.
Heart rate variability, yes.
Which tells you how prepared you are for physical exertion.
How much rest did you get from your sleep? Yeah. Yep. And
A low HRV is not good.
A
A
low
high HRV
yes.
is good.
Yeah. Yep. And so it gives me the score, and I typically fall asleep. I think they give you 20 minutes to a half an hour is like the normal time it takes to fall asleep. I think last night it took me 1 minute.
Yeah.
And I'm usually within the 5 minutes or so.
Because you had got
range.
up at 2 a.m. and...
No, that was the day before.
Oh, okay. Well, then you're paying for it
Yes.
the next night. Yeah.
Yeah. And So I'm asleep pretty quickly.
Okay. And you wake up when?
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock, your alarm goes off. You get right out of bed.
4 o'clock, my bed vibrates, and I am up.
Do you have a backup alarm?
Nope.
Okay, so just if you didn't wake up to that vibration, would it do it again?
It would not stop until I shut it off.
Got it.
Yeah. It's a
They need like
it's like your phone vibrating in your bed.
Yeah, my watch does that.
Oh,
and it's not waking up to a sound is the best thing ever.
Yes.
Because your body just processes it so much better.
And it does start fairly slow. So I probably get 3 hits before it actually. Sometimes I typically wake up, half an hour or so before, and I'm like, okay, am I going back to bed or am I going to get out of bed? Meaning I stir, and I don't actually wake up. And, I'll sometimes think, was that it? Was that it? And it's not yet.
Yeah.
So it's a nice, calm, easy way to wake up.
Okay, so you're out of bed at 4 and use the bathroom, whatever.
Shave.
Yeah.
Shave,
shower.
Listen to a podcast. No, don't shower yet.
Okay.
I shave, listen to a podcast, which for the past year, it's been Bible in a Year with Father Mike Schmidt.
Yeah.
Which has been great. It's just the right amount of time.
It's like 20 or 30 minutes.
Yes, unless you accelerate it.
Yeah.
And then it's the time it takes to shave.
Time.
Yes.
And he usually goes through like a scripture, a prayer, and then a devotional on whatever you read.
Yeah.
And it's the Bible in a year. So you could be in any part of the Bible. It's not like.
Yes. Yeah. Right now it's Maccabees, Sirach, and Proverbs.
Got it. And why do you shower and not shave right after? Or why don't you shave closer to your shower?
I shave and then I work out.
Why do you shave before you work out?
It's my wake up.
That's just what you do.
That's just what I do.
But you're going to work out.
But
and
I'm
you're not
going to
shower.
I'm not going to shower. It cuts down the amount of time that I'm in the shower. I don't know when that started. Your grandfather always did that too. It was the first thing he did when he got up. He would shave. And I've just always done that. Yeah.
Got it. All right. So you shave and then you go work out.
Yeah. Yoga. I've been doing the same yoga routine for, it's been a year or so, maybe a year and a half now. I used to vary every day. I did a lot more yoga a long time ago. That was pretty much all I did was yoga, and I'd do up to 45 minutes of yoga for a workout, and that was everything. And I've gone back to doing more sort of calisthenic body weight. My yoga's only about 5.5 minutes, just a good stretch. Then I'll do push-ups and other calisthenics for my back and neck, and a few pull-ups, handstands, and then I go to the rower and I'll row for, now it's 7 minutes. My goal is within 7 minutes to do a mile.
Which is 1,600 meters.
1610.
Yeah.
I understand, yeah. 1610 meters on the rower, and to do that under 7 minutes.
Got it. Okay. So, and that usually, all that, you're doing 5 minutes of yoga?
5.5 minutes of yoga, yep.
Maybe 10 minutes of body weight, calisthenics, whatever.
Yeah, and then I do the rower. I must admit, I go to the bathroom before I head back up to the rower.
Mm-hmm.
And then from the rower, I go downstairs and I do have that inverted
table.
Table, yeah.
Teeter.
A teeter is what it's called. And I do sit-ups and a few, sit-ups of varying sorts on that for a while. Then I have some free weights and what do you call those, Bosu ball?
Yeah.
A Bosu ball that I do some free weights on, and then I do a couple kettlebell exercises, and that's my exercise routine. Then it's a shower.
That's probably like a half an hour total.
Yep. Yeah, so I'm done. My goal is 6:15 to be out of the shower.
Got it. All right. So then what do you do?
6:15, I sit down and so when I write in my daily planner, I write what I'm going to do. I write down gratitude with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'll fill in 5 things of gratitude that either hit me that morning or the day before when I review the day. I'll write those down. And then I also write down the word remember, which I took from a book I read quite some time ago.
What was it called?
Remember, Surrender.
Do you know who it's by?
No. Matthew, I can look it up. So I write the word remember the day before, and then on the day when I'm when I'm up and I'm writing in my planner, I fill in the word remember, and the first one that I write down is love everybody always, which is from Bob Goff.
Mm-hmm.
Then I write down the word surrender, which actually comes from the book. I think the book's title was truly Remember Surrender. And then I write down the word intention, which has an arrow to it, which is followed by action. I used to write intention down because I'm pretty sure I was reading John Maxwell, and it was a book on intention. And then I read more of John Maxwell, or it hit me differently another time, and he said intention without action is folly. It's a waste. So I now write intention with an arrow, meaning you got to have action in there. And then I write down purpose. And again, this is all remember, love everybody always, remember surrender, remember intention and action, remember purpose. And purpose, again, from John Maxwell, I got, and then in another follow-up podcast from John Maxwell, he said, purpose without priorities or passion is also empty. So I write those things down. Then I write down to be present, to remember to be present. And then it's judge not that you may not be judged. And then the new one that I've just come up with that I got from several different things, I'll tie it to the book Relentless.
Who's that by?
It might take me a minute to remember who wrote Relentless. But what I took from that book was, don't think, do. You watch, when people have practiced, they don't have to think, they just do. So you have to practice so that you can be in a position to not think and just do. Because people will cripple themselves, be paralyzed by overthinking, trying to think what to do next when, you have to just take the step to do. You could fail along the way if you don't do anything at all by failing, or you could fail trying to do something. And the great reward between failing when you've tried something is you learn what didn't work and learn more about what would work.
Right. That reminds me of, I was in Georgia this weekend at my in-laws' house, and my father-in-law says this every once in a while, and it blows my mind. For anyone that doesn't know, he's a dentist, but when he gets home, he picks up a shovel or an excavator or a wood mill or whatever and builds these incredible pavilions, ponds. I mean, he's just built remarkable stuff.
He's fixing to do something when he gets home.
Oh, he's always fixing to do something. So you would think by looking at that he was either trained or is just a freak natural talent. He says this every once in a while to me. Oh yeah, I built that first woodshed, and back then I didn't even know that you put studs 16 on center. And then I put the plywood on top, and I figured out real quick why you do that, because you've got spots overhanging and gaps. You're trying to put the edge of a piece of plywood in the middle between a stud.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't make any sense. So he quickly figured out. And to me, that's just like he was doing stuff like that without even thinking about, well, I don't know what I'm doing. And so much we're held up by this thinking versus doing. And he was just like, I'm just going to do it. I got to build a shed. I need a shed. I'll just build it.
Yeah.
And then where you end up from that, if he had been paralyzed by, well, I really don't know, if it should be 16 or 18 on center, and some people do 24, and if he had been held up by that, he may never have started.
Right.
And what wouldn't have been built is incredible.
Mm.
So that is what I've been thinking about that recently.
And that reminds me of your grandfather, Bisson, who...
My grandfather or your grandfather?
Your grandfather, yeah. So I just remember him working around the house and doing anything, being able to do anything, from fixing a car to fixing a sink to building something, moving a little house, a small, probably 16 by 18 house from one side of the street to the other side over the embankment onto the water to serve as a boathouse. And I just remember all of a sudden one day thinking to myself while we were doing a project together, because I was always his sideman, and that's how I learned to communicate.
Gopher.
Without communication.
Yeah.
I was his gopher. And I just learned to anticipate whatever he was going to need, and that was my job. And it was like this epiphany in my mind. I said, how did you learn how to do this? Who taught you how to do this? Because I need to learn how to do this, and who's going to teach me? I mean, you're teaching me, but how did you learn? And I said, Dad, did your father work around the house like this? And did he teach you how to do all these things? No, my father never did anything. He didn't do anything around the house. I just figured out I had to do it. So I just taught myself how to do it.
That's hilarious.
And that made me say, if you want to do it, you just got to do it.
Yeah.
And to just on my grandfather's behalf a little bit, he had a bad accident with a hand that caused him to not be able to do things for a long time, almost forever, really, that some people could do physically.
Right. All right. So we just took a little break there to start the cameras over. So we're talking about doing. We're on a tangent. Talking about your daily schedule. Did you have something you wanted to?
I was just going to say, so those are the affirmations.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is you were talking about, I write this, I write that. It's like, okay.
No, those are affirmations to remember throughout the day, throughout my life, that these are the important things. Part of my calendar that I write is also an affirmation. My 4 o'clock, I'm alive, that gets me out of bed. And
4 o'clock, I'm alive is in reference to your accident.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's what gets me up.
Not dead yet.
Not dead yet. So then the affirmations I write, and then below that, I have already, the night before, I've written down my MVPs, and I botched that before. MVP stands for Most Valuable Priorities. Another way to look at it is really, it's the most valuable people that I want to connect with or accomplish something for during that day. Then at the very bottom of that page, every day I write down, it's a Tony Robbins affirmation that I think I've modified with a word or two. I can't remember the exact usage that he has. And it's also something that we did in Bold, Keller Williams Bold class. And I write down every day, in every way, I'm getting better and better. And that completes my daily planner. And then it's time to get to work, except, I guess I would say, right after I do that, then I write in a journal. And my goal is to come as close to filling a page that I can on something that's on my mind. Sometimes it just comes to me at that moment. Sometimes it's something that I have either heard, maybe I've heard it in a podcast in the morning. It was in the reading that I had, something somebody said, and I'll pick a topic and I'll just start to sort of roll that around in words, which is really helpful because it might be a topic that I've thought about a lot, and all of a sudden as I write, I'll end up in a place that brings me another nugget that I didn't have before, or it helps process through some things that I didn't have great clarity on that will all of a sudden just start to really gel together. I've been doing that for, Bold is the one that inspired me to do that. I always wanted to do it, but Bold really became an accountability to do that. So I write in it every day. When I say every day, I do this during the week. I take the weekends off for some reason or other. Sometimes I'll do it on weekends too, but I definitely do it Monday through Friday. So I write in the journal. Last statement I write in the journal at the bottom is give $1 million. Ultimately, what is the purpose of making money? It's not to, build a treasure house full of treasures. It's really to improve the lives of others. So how can we someday give $1 million towards that effort? Then my next thing is Wordle.
Which you play with Lucian.
Wordle with Lucian.
Yeah.
Yep. So I play Wordle with Lucian. I say with Lucian just because we do it. He does it, and we report on our results daily.
Does he just destroy?
He does.
He must just.
Yeah, he does destroy Wordle.
crush.
Once in a while, I'll get it before
You
him.
get lucky.
I get lucky. Yeah. Yeah, I do get lucky once in a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's fun because he does it, Kristen does it, and I do it.
Oh, I didn't know
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so you finish your journal, then you play Wordle. What time are you finishing Wordle?
Usually a little around 6:30, 6:45. I'm finished with Wordle.
Okay. And then, so that takes you a half an hour to do all that journaling,
Yep.
etc.
Yep.
And then, what do you do after that?
I will hop on my computer for a few minutes. I'll just do a quick check of emails. Sometimes I don't always do that first, but I'll go to Facebook and I look for people's birthdays, and I'll do my birthday message, get that done, and I'll look at what we have for upcoming birthdays, because really what's sort of, if I already know who I'm going to write note cards to, I'll write note cards before I go into Facebook, or wherever I can find whose birthday is when. So I'll write 3 to 5 note cards a day to people. Mm-hmm. And the goal of the note card is to encourage somebody, maybe support somebody up, hold somebody up, somebody's had a loss, or I mostly like to do gratitude or encouragement, recognize somebody for something that they've done.
Yeah. File that under not just your 20% in the 80-20 principle, but maybe your 1%. Because I have people who will get a note card from you, and it's they're like, this broke me. That it just means the world to people when you do that. Because it's such a, you can call someone or you can text someone, and that means a lot. Just first off, saying something to someone in passing is hugely impactful. And that's what you were, I know you were subtly referencing, but didn't outright say about don't think, just do. When something comes to you and you I just thought of hey, your note cards mean a lot to people. I could just be okay, I'll let him keep talking, and I'll just think that to myself.
Right.
Instead, I said the thing that I was thinking.
Right.
So don't think, just do. So say the things. So you could say something to someone in passing, and that would have a huge impact on their day or their life or whatever. You could go as far as you think of someone and they're not around you, or you're not going to see them for a while, texting or calling them. That's the next level of wow, you took the time out of your day to do that. That means so much. There's something about handwriting something. 1, it takes forever. 2, you have to be organized and have note cards and whatever. And 3, they have it forever. If I say something to someone says something the next day, and out goes my compliment, and in comes their insult. Whereas a handwritten note, you can put on your fridge, you can frame, you can add to a pile on your desk. I mean, I have a card from Mariana on my desk that I see every once in a while, and I'm like, oh yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah. Well, and I guess 4 and 5 to that is you might encourage that person to recognize somebody else, either through those forms that you just said, or they may remember that and at some point in time say, I ought to write some handwritten notes, because it is impactful. Yeah. And I guess the other criteria of not just taking the initiative, getting organized to do it, having the note cards, is having the confidence that regardless of what my handwriting looks like, I'm going to send this note. Sometimes it's this hand scratching on here. What does this look like? That's just killing me. I want it to be, calligraphy and beautiful and, sprawl across the page. And that's not what's important. Yeah. It's the message.
It's almost better that it's not, because when you would get a letter like that with a beautiful handwriting, someone would be like, well, I can't write like that, so I'm not going to do this. He only does this because he can write beautifully and wants people to see it. It's almost better that it's, just whatever, because then it's about the thought rather than the aesthetics. Or
So you take that whole process that you said, you can recognize it and say something. You can text, or you could email. I guess those are the kind of same kind of categories. Or you can write a note. And the beauty of it is, after you have done it for a while, it's almost like you've got this funnel. And in this funnel are possibilities for expressing gratitude or encouragement or support, and they fall down and they all come through this funnel, and then they fall into the different categories. And so, like, I was at the Chop Point Trustees meeting this weekend, and people did things, said things, or whatever, and do I recognize that now? Do I text them later, or do I send them a note? Which of those little pots does that fall into when it hits the bottom? And that's fun, because maybe I just wrote them a note a little while ago, or, I haven't talked to them forever. It also allows me to learn more about people, because sometimes I don't know them, and I'll have to learn more about them.
Yeah. That's great. All right, so was that after you play Wordle, you write handwritten notes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And is that like a half an hour?
Yeah, sometimes. It depends. If I know who I'm going to write to, and if I know the message, they come a little quicker. Like, I have pretty much a birthday script, I might add a little bit in there, but it's pretty much the same. So yeah, it's about a half an hour to do those. And I'll do more of those. So this is something that I think, it was Keller Williams we got at Bold, that fall is for gratitude and recognizing, fall is gratitude, recognizing, feeding your database, and spring is, reconnecting and getting back in touch with them. Fall is more clean out, make sure you connect with everybody. Spring is more, again, connecting with everybody, but filling it and feeding it.
Okay. What do you do after you write note cards?
Then I'm on my computer. I'm dealing with whatever emails I might have to deal with, and I'm connecting with people. Yeah.
Like on the phone?
On the phone, text, whatever.
But like office
stuff.
You're in the office at that point.
Yes. Yeah. And I do that until typically 10 or 11 o'clock.
Okay. And then you usually have appointments after that.
And I usually have appointments after that.
Building inspections.
Yeah. Listing appointments, buyer appointments, and just appointments. I mean, my goal is to have 1 or 2 appointments a day, regardless of what they are.
Yeah. Maybe you meet someone for coffee, or you're on a board, or you're in a planning committee, or whatever.
Yep.
Okay. And then what time do you like to be done with appointments?
5 o'clock's kind of my magic time. That changes a bit in the summertime because of our business, lighter, later. We end up doing more usually at that point in time. But by 5 or so.
We didn't talk about... Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, you're good.
We didn't talk about food.
Oh, yeah, food. Well, let's just finish the time first, and we'll go to food. So, 5, I like to be done, and, as much as possible, I try not to work after that. I will, I'll
like office
find
work.
A few things, office work, yeah. And, it's funny because it's office work, and it all blends, real estate, life. They're all so interconnected, which is what I think I like about it so much, because when I'm working real estate, I am serving someone and their needs, wants, desires, helping them get to where they want to be. And the same thing is when I'm working with an organization. It's the same process. You try to move people forward. So because of that, most of the times, no, it doesn't feel like work.
Okay, so food throughout the day.
Food throughout the day. So I've been doing this for a year now. Yeah, I think it's a year. I don't think it's more than that. Intermittent fasting. So I get up, I don't eat until 11 o'clock. And I used to be a religious breakfast person. I could not go into the day without having breakfast. And I've changed that in a year. I don't eat until 11:30. I'm not hungry, partly because I drink lots of water, which helps just keep I'm not dehydrated. My stomach doesn't feel hungry.
Mm-hmm.
And I enjoy the feeling of my stomach emptying. I literally can feel the gurgling, to some extent. And to me, that's cleaning out the old and allowing new to come in, so it's not kind of laying on top of itself. That's probably Rick Bisson's simple theory.
They call that bro science.
Bro science.
Yeah.
I'm a bro Scientologist.
Me too. Bro scientist. I think bro Scientologist is
probably
different.
not the thing I want to be. I'm a professor of bro science. So I'll eat at 11:30, and that, again, for about a year, because my my diabetes level was high. It was like 6.1, 6.2. And my doctor, was saying, he said it a couple of times when I'd had my blood levels checked, you got to get this figured out or you're potentially going to have problems. And, when the doctor says you might get diabetes and you might lose your fingers or your toes and other things, it's like, eventually I said, I think it was twice I said, okay, I got to get this in order. So I got some advice from him and I needed to cut out sugars. My body likes sugar a lot, and I like sugar a lot. And that's refined sugar, not necessarily other sugars. So I started researching what I could do, and since then I've basically been on a lunch. My lunch consists largely of a smoothie, fruit and vegetable smoothie mixed together. I make one for myself, and your mom will have one as well. And that's helped me tremendously. I will eat, some protein and some other things along with it. It hasn't made me, necessarily a vegetarian or a vegan. I just like the fact that I can take this concoction of fruits and vegetables and grind it up in the blender, and I can drink it, and it doesn't take me, 2 hours to eat, because that's how long it would take to eat all those foods. Mm-hmm. And right after I do that, because of my doctor's recommendations, not every day, but most days, I will go for a walk, and I'll walk about a mile, which is an amazing way to, get your metabolism going after you've had food. And I haven't eaten for 12 hours. I like not to eat after 7, so I've gone, 12, 14, 16 hours without eating, so your body's reacting to a lot at one time. Mm-hmm. And the walk helps sort of stimulate that process of digestion.
If you were to eat protein at that point, what would you eat?
Hamburger, steak,
Got it.
Chicken, something like that.
Got it.
Typically something that mom might have made the night before or had out from the night before.
Got it. So your carbs are mostly coming from fruits and vegetables.
Yes.
You're not eating.
I don't eat a lot of bread.
Or,
Uncle Mike Ryan, got diagnosed with celiac. I think we talked about it with him the other day. He said it was like 9 or 10 years ago. And, I didn't understand much about it. And then he had me read the book, Grain Brain. And that, opened my eyes up to a lot of things that I really hadn't paid attention to before. I had migrated from Wonder Bread, to whole grain, multi-grain breads. And I felt like we were eating good breads. And then that just really kind of tipped me on the scales to say, okay, none of this really sounds good anymore. So I was really bread-free for quite a while. Now I'm probably 90% bread-free.
It's like dessert or like a fun thing to eat versus...
Yeah. And, especially when I'm biking, I have to get a lot of carbs. Mm-hmm. So I will go back to eating a piece of toast with peanut butter on it and some jam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you don't eat after your smoothie until dinner.
Until dinner. And
you don't snack?
I will once in a while snack.
What
and
is
my
a snack?
snacks are nuts.
Okay.
Typically nuts. Sometimes some, what is her name? Menina tortillas.
Oh, yeah.
They are
Oh,
my
my
nemesis.
Chips. Chips are a sign you need more calories. That's what I've deduced in life.
But mostly it's almonds. I do like pistachios, those kind of things for if I'm going to grab something, or I'll grab another piece of fruit. And yes, a sweet here and there is going to travel across my palate too. Don't think that I'm perfect in that way.
Menina is not just chips and carbs and like your body's hungry, but also sugar.
Yeah,
because those are
the agave.
Yeah, they're sweetened, so your body's like, sugar.
Jalapeno and agave.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which is a sign that you probably need more sugar, but just the right kind, not the wrong kind.
Yep. Then dinner is typically not a big meal, probably bigger than it should be because I'm trying not to eat too much before I go to bed. And we'll have beef a lot of times at dinner. I try to get a salad in. I don't, even though I do the smoothie thing, my numbers are pretty low for, I think it's folate maybe, which is derived from leafy greens and things like that. I can't remember the exact missing elements that I don't get enough of, but I know it's because I don't eat enough leafy green things.
Got it. And then after dinner, you maybe chill on the couch.
Yep. Well, it depends. If it's summertime, I try to get outside and do something a little bit. But, we're going into the dark ages right now where it's going to be dark at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Mm-hmm. So that's a challenge. So that when you talk about hacks and what am I working on, so this quarter, I've signed up for a couple of things and I need to sign up for a couple more that I will do when it gets dark so that I'm just not sitting on the couch. I'm getting a bike trainer that I can train inside, and I'll start riding that 2 or 3 times, probably 2 times anyways, a week to keep my legs going. And I've got some other ideas of things that I'm going to work on. I want to work on my my strength, my
strength.
Yeah, I don't want to lose. I want to continue to
muscle mass.
Maintain muscle mass as much as I can, and I need to do it in a way that I don't hurt myself. So I actually got a recommendation for someone in Falmouth who teaches body strength mechanics, and I'm going to schedule a time to go see them.
Awesome.
Yeah. I want to be able to lift. Most of what I do light weights and body weights. And I want to be able to lift heavier weights, not a lot of times, but enough to maintain mass.
Muscle mass, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's like one of the, I know, just listening to people talk about it, that's like one of the biggest indicators of health and longevity is muscle density. Like if you have dense muscles at 60, 70, 80, 90, you're like, the chances that everything else is, good too, are pretty high.
And I think you really have 2 roads that you go on as you grow older, and you watch basically 2 body types, those that stay pretty much the same, and yet as those bodies age, the weight still, you have a full face when you're young. My face is very thinner now than it was before. And, probably my shoulders aren't as big as they were. My chest, it just kind of, I weigh almost within pounds of what I did when I was younger. But that weight settles. I got a little bit more around my waist. I don't know where it goes, really. And then the other path is overweight. And, that has all of its, you can be slightly, moderately, or heavily overweight. And I'm fairly certain that part of my fortune comes from genetics because my grandfather was thin, and Grammy's thin, Binky's healthy. So I have good genes that way. And
you can also throw away genetics.
How do you mean?
You can leave your genetics behind and pursue other things.
Yes, exactly right.
Or not have good genetics and work like a dog and have success.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, so we finish dinner, hang out for a little bit, and then we're right back at 7 o'clock.
Back at 7 o'clock. Journal. Daily planner. Prayer list. Bed.
Nice. Is there anything you want to add to that?
Well, I think, just kind of going back to what gets you out of bed, keeping that in the forefront of your mind throughout the day. Today is promised. Tomorrow, we don't know. Yesterday was yesterday. So what are you going to do during that daytime that you're up and alive, and what can you do to make life better for yourself so that you can make life better for others?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And is there anything you want to say in general before we close out? Anything else you want to add?
Good.
Okay. We haven't really done this yet, but if people want to reach out to you, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Well, how do I answer that one? They can email. Do I just do my email, my Facebook?
How would you prefer to be contacted?
That's a great question. Email probably is the easiest one.
Do you want to do the Bisson team email for that? And then
No, Rick at BissonRealEstate.com.
Okay.
It's great. And, I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram.
Yep.
So any of those channels work.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to... I'm trying to figure out all those things, because I have a need to respond quickly, and I also have a need to sometimes triage how I'm going to get back to people. So I guess in terms of order, I'd put it as email, Facebook, Instagram. You can text me.
Yeah.
And my email address is rick at BissonRealEstate.com.
Yep.
And
you can also follow Bisson Real Estate on social media.
Mm-hmm.
BISSON Real Estate. It's just at Bisson Real Estate on Instagram. My sister Juliet runs all our social media and does an amazing job.
Mm-hmm.
It's not one of those things where you get sent to social media and you're like, cool, you have like 5 posts. It's just like very robust. She does tips of the week. She does stories every day. Motivation Monday is awesome. She just kills that every time. It's not just a good quote, but it's well done. Throwback Thursday.
What our clients are saying.
Yeah, she does daily stories. She does reels on new listings and posts every listing on there so you can see, as soon as something hits the market, you'll see it on our social media. So unless you're set up on a search for the MLS, you're not going to see a new listing that hits the market that we have. But if you follow us on social media and you have us as a favorite or whatever, as soon as that hits the market, it's on social media. So if you want to be kind of the first to know, we've sold a few people houses that never would have known about the place had it not been for them following us on social media. And then I'm trying to think of what else. If you want to support, Rick, you can send referrals. That's like the biggest compliment you can give our family is send us a real estate referral, whether you're an agent or just a person that has a friend or a family member that wants to sell or buy in the Mid-Coast Maine area. And if you don't live in that area and you don't have someone that can help you, we can help you find an agent. We can do a referral. We'll get paid for that. So it's a great way to support us. It's also a great way for you to help someone who's not connected with a good agent, because we're connected with agents all over the country. And if we don't know an agent in your town or in the town that they're looking in or selling in, we can kind of interview agents for you and help on your behalf to find you good representation, because that is really important. And I think we'll talk at some point about the importance of good representation. Maybe we can make that a topic for next week.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add to that?
No, thanks for the time.
Yeah. Love you, Dad.
Love you, Guy.
All right.